So as we are going into a crypto bull market, many of the crypto investors are looking into cashing out their crypto holdings in the next few months. But obviously, when the question of a crypto cash out comes, there's a question of capital gains tax as well if you are a UK tax resident. Today we are joined with Laura Sent, who is a partner at LSR Partner, and we are going to get her opinion on the same topic. So Laura, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Shiraz. Not a problem at all. Thanks for having me.
So, Laura, my first question to you is that if someone is a crypto investor who's a UK tax resident and they want to cash out their crypto holdings, what would be the capital gains tax or personal tax implications if they do so?
Thanks, Shiraz. So I think the first thing that I just want to point out is I am assuming that the people who will be cashing out these investments are actually holding investments and are therefore subject to capital gains tax rather than being kind of regular traders that might fall within the scope of income tax. So as a result, if you were to cash in kind of an investment in cryptocurrency, similar to with other assets, you would be subject to capital gains tax on any increase in value on the crypto. In terms of that, it's worth noting that from a UK tax perspective and from HMRC's perspective, given that when it comes to cryptocurrency, there isn't actually any physical location to the asset. From their perspective, if you are a UK tax resident, the gain would be considered to be UK sourced. And what that means is that irrelevant of whether you're domiciled inside or outside of the UK and whether the remittance basis is available to you at this precise moment in time, if you were to realise a gain on some cryptocurrency, then you would be subject to UK capital gains tax.
Okay, so thank you for that quick summarization. Where I understand that if you are a UK tax resident and you do cash out your investments, there is going to be a capital gains tax. Now, there is also a solution that comes up that what if you become a non-UK tax resident and let's say you come to a place such as Dubai where there is no capital gains tax on crypto investments. You take up the residency in Dubai, you declare yourself a non-tax resident in the UK. Does that works? And if so, what could be the steps for that, or is that even possible from your experience? Yeah.
No worries. So, in terms of becoming a UK tax non-resident, if you're non-resident, the only thing that would be subject to capital gains tax during the period whilst you're non-resident would be the disposal of UK land and property. So, if you were set to sell cryptocurrency whilst you're a UK tax non-resident, there would be no capital gains tax to pay. There obviously are some considerations around some anti-avoidance rules that HMRC have got in place, which are known as temporary non-residence rules. In terms of that, the reason that they've been introduced is because if you are considered to be, well, I suppose anybody could turn around and decide, I'm going to leave the UK for 12 months, become a non-resident, sell all my assets, realise massive gains, and not pay a penny's worth of tax. And HMRC look at it and go, well, all you've tried to do is avoid paying tax, and we're not having that. So yes, so they have these temporary non-residence rules. In terms of temporary non-residents, this would come into play if you have been considered a UK tax resident for at least 4 out of the previous 7 tax years prior to the year of your departure. And if you have, you must ensure that you're a UK tax non-resident for at least 5 whole years in order not to be considered to be temporary non-resident from HMRC's perspective. If you're considered to be temporary non-resident, whilst you're non-resident, from those gains still would not crystallise. However, upon your return to the UK, once you became UK resident again, then you would be exposed to capital gains tax on any gains that had realised from assets already held whilst you were a UK tax resident.
Okay, so I understand that you can't be just going out of the UK for 12 months, cashing out, and then saying that, okay, I was non-tax resident, and then there is no tax on that. As you pointed out correctly, the temporary non-residence test will classify you when you come back. If, and as you said, if you come back for a period of less than 5 years, then you risk again to get into the UK tax net for the previous years that you have spent outside of the UK. So, can you also point out the process of becoming a non-UK resident from a tax perspective? How does that looks like?
So in the UK, we use the statutory residence test to determine your UK tax residence position. And whilst it's called the statutory residence test, in reality, it's a series of tests that can be used to determine whether you would be considered automatically non-resident in the UK, automatically resident in the UK, or potentially we have to look at sufficient ties test. We also have something in the UK called split year treatment for years where you are leaving the UK or arriving in the UK at some point during the tax year, whereby HMRC kind of agree that you may be considered domestically resident as a starting point for the tax year. But because you've left the UK midway through the year, you can split it so you're considered non-resident from a particular period. In terms of being considered automatically non-resident, there are two ways that you can be non-resident for a particular tax year. So the first one is by means of kind of just physical presence in the UK or lack thereof. So in the first 3 years where you're a UK tax non-resident, you need to make sure that you would be spending no more than 15 midnights in the UK during a tax, like during the whole of a tax year, in order to be considered automatically non-resident in the UK. Once you're in your fourth year of non-residence or kind of beyond, at that stage, that day count gets increased to 45 days of presence. And as I say, if you're in the UK for no more than 45 midnights, you would automatically be considered non-resident in the UK. The second or realistically third test for being considered automatically non-resident is something called full or known as full-time work outside of the UK. In terms of meeting that criteria, you need to ensure that you are working full time, which is an average of at least 35 hours per week across the whole tax year. You mustn't have a significant break from this full time work outside of the UK, which is where 31 or more days go by, and not one of them is either an overseas work day or would have been an overseas work day, but for annual leave, parenting leave, or sick leave. In terms of jobs, you can't be an international transportation worker with 6 or more journeys commencing or ending in the UK. And then in terms of time that you're allowed to spend back in the UK, you can have a maximum of 30 work days, which is where you would work for more than 3 hours a day. So, for example, if you were on holiday in the UK and, as a business owner, you might spend an hour or so checking your emails, that wouldn't necessarily constitute a work day. But if you'd arrived in the UK for the purpose of undertaking work that day, the reality is that's likely to be considered a UK work day. And then in terms of physical presence, if you're working full time outside of the UK, that day count will get increased to 90 midnights, so a maximum of 90 days in the UK to meet that criteria of full time work outside of the UK.
Okay, thank you, Laura, for that in-depth explanation as well for becoming a non-UK tax resident. But what is your advice to someone who is now looking into making this move? Maybe they've already left the UK, maybe they're in the process of considering leaving UK. What could be some logical next steps for them to make sure that they're remaining compliant with the HMRC laws as they go through this transition?
I would suggest that they seek some professional advice if you are looking at breaking UK tax residence. In the UK, we use something called the statutory residence test to determine your UK tax residence position, and it's not the most straightforward. It's quite easy to fall foul of, and especially if you were to be realising a large gain that could that has potential to save you, hundreds of thousands, if not more, of pounds, then it is worth making sure that you're doing it right and getting your residency position correct and actually making sure you're breaking residence.
Well, thank you, Laura, for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
So that's it for today. And if you want my help and Laura's help to help you become a non-tax resident in the UK and potentially move to Dubai and become a UAE tax resident, book a one-on-one call in the description below and we will get you sorted. Thank you.